So we're going to put together a video going through this homework. This was, I believe, page 472. It's problem 22 to 27, but for our class, I wanted you to find the measures of the missing angle. So I'm going to go through problem 22 again, although we did it in class. We want to find the measures of angle X and angle Y. So first for 22, to find the measure of angle X, they give me the length here of 14, which I can see this is the hypotenuse of the triangle. And 7 radical 3 is the leg that is adjacent, it's touching angle X. So 7 radical 3 divided by 14. And that is the adjacent leg divided by the hypotenuse. Because when I have an adjacent leg and a hypotenuse, that's how we set it up. And that gives me cosine. If you don't remember, it's SOHCAHTOA. So when I have an adjacent and a hypotenuse, I'm finding the cosine. So the first off is I have to do this math. And I'm going to put into my calculator, I'm doing the calculator off screen because I don't have a scientific that works with the Promethean board. So 3 square root is 1.732, continues on, times 7 is 12.12, continuing on, divided by 14. So my ratio here, 7 radical 3 divided by 14, becomes, to the 4th decimal place, 0.8660. I'm going to leave that in my calculator that you can't see off screen. And since this is the cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, I'm going to hit the second button and the inverse cosine, which is cosine -1. It looks like this. And I get 30 for angle X. Now, since this has to add up to 180, 30 plus angle Y have to equal 90, so I know that Y is 60. But let's say I want to check it. So I'm going to check it in red here. The measure of angle Y. Again, the only 2 side lengths I have is a hypotenuse and the side leg that's 7 radical 3. 14 is the hypotenuse. But now 7 radical 3 is actually the leg opposite angle Y. And when I have opposite divided by hypotenuse, so opposite divided by hypotenuse, I'm using the sine ratio. Now, once again, 7 radical 3 divided by 14, when I do all that work, it's 0.8660. But now, instead of using cosine, which I did here, measure of angle Y, I'm using sine because I have the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Of course, my calculator died here, putting that back on, so 0.8660, second button, and then the sine inverse gives me 59.997, which rounds to 60. So I know that my answers are correct for 22. Okay, now for 23. I do not have a hypotenuse here. I have 2 legs. So first I'm going to find the measure of angle X. So for angle X, 4 is the leg that is adjacent to angle X. That's what I'm finding right here. And 8 square root of 2 is opposite. Again, for SOHCAHTOA, I lost that. Let me rewrite it up here. SOHCAHTOA. If I have opposite and adjacent, I'm using the tangent ratio. The opposite goes on top, which is 8 square root of 2 divided by 4. Okay, and this is going to be tangent. So first off, I'm going to do, in my calculator, the square root of 2 is 1.414, goes on and on and on, times 8, and that's going to give me 11.3137 divided by 4, and it's 2.8284. Leaving that all on my calculator, second button, and since I'm using tangent, press tangent, and I get 70.528. So I'm going to round that to 70.53 degrees. I'm not going to get so picky right now if you rounded that to 71 or 70.5. I'm going to be a little exact with my decimals because it helps me better check my answer. So now, to check my answer, I'm going to find the measure of angle y. Again, I do not have a measurement for a hypotenuse, but I have the measurement of the two legs. The difference here is now 4 is the length of the leg opposite angle y. And 8 radical 2 is adjacent to y. So to find the tangent, it's opposite divided by adjacent. The opposite is 4. The adjacent is 8 radical 2. So I'm going to do the bottom part first here. 2 radical is 1.414, goes on, times 8. So this is 11.314. I'm going to round it to 4 divided by 11.314 is a ratio of 0.3535, and it continues on. That's the tangent ratio. I want to know what angle that equates to. So second button on the calculator, tangent inverse, and I get 19.47. Now to check that, I'm going to add 70.53 and 19.47 and my calculator to double check. Those do add up to 90 degrees. So my math there does work. Erasing these and moving on to problem 24. Problem 24, again, has no hypotenuse. It has angle x and angle y, and it has just the legs. I'm going to find the measure of angle x first. Since I have no hypotenuse, I'm using the tangent ratio. The leg opposite angle x is 12. And the leg adjacent to angle x is 35. 12 divided by 35 is 0.342857, etc., etc., etc. Since I'm using tangent, but I'm finding an angle measure, so I'm using the inverse. Second button, tan -1, and angle x is 18.92 degrees. Finding the measure of angle y. I'm again using tangent because I have no hypotenuse. My opposite leg to angle y is 35. and my adjacent leg to angle y is 12. So my opposite divided by my adjacent is 2.9167. That's my tangent ratio. It's actually 2.9166666666. Second button tangent, and I get 71.07, which when I add that to 18.92 is 89.99. So I'm very close to 90 degrees. I'm going to consider that I did that correctly. Moving on, problem 25. 25, I'm going to find angle y first. I have a hypotenuse of 3 radical 5. And actually, to make my life a little bit easier, okay, radical 5 is 2.236, etc., times 3. So this is 6.708. So I'm going to start cheating a little bit. I'm going to use that decimal. So the leg opposite y has a measure of 6. The hypotenuse is 6.708. This is opposite over hypotenuse, so I'm dealing with the sign. If you don't remember, so toa. Okay, so in my calculator, 6 divided by 6.708 equals 0.894. If I round it, it's from 5, but in my calculator it says 0.894454, etc. Inverse, so that's the second button, sine, and I get that angle y here is 63.44 degrees. And for angle x, now my 6 over the hypotenuse of 6.708, that's still my hypotenuse, but now what was my opposite leg for angle y is the leg adjacent to angle x. So when I have adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm using cosine. So again, 6 divided by 6.708, I've done that math before, is 0.8945. So 0.8945 second cosine equals, hold on, I pressed one button too many here. 0.8945 second cosine is 26.56, what it rounds to. So if I add 21.56 plus 63.44, I get 90. Problem 26. No hypotenuse, so I'm dealing with tangent ratios. So for angle x, the leg opposite x is 16. The leg adjacent to x is 30, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. 16 divided by 30 is 0.53 repeating. In the calculator, second button, tangent is 28.07. To check angle y. Now the side opposite angle y is 30, and the side adjacent to angle y is 16. So 30, press 60 by chance, 30 divided by 16 is a tangent ratio of 1.875. 1.875 second tangent inverse is 61.9 0.927, so that's going to round to 61.93. And I can see that 28.07 plus 61.93 is 90 degrees. Last problem. And here I do have a hypotenuse. So if I have a hypotenuse, I'm going to be using sine and cosine ratios. So for the measure of angle x, the hypotenuse is 65. The other measurement of 56 in this case is the leg opposite angle x. So when I'm finding the measure of x, 56 divided by 65 is 0.8615. Since I'm doing opposite over hypotenuse, I'm doing sine. So that second button, inverse sine, and I get 59.49 degrees. For angle y, 65 is still the hypotenuse. 56, though, instead of being the opposite for x, is the adjacent to y. So I have the same actual ratio, 0.8615. But now I'm doing second button, and since I'm doing adjacent divided by hypotenuse, that's cosine. And I get 30.51. And 59.49 plus 30.51 is 90 degrees. So I hope going through these has helped you better understand how to find missing angle measures using sine ratio, cosine ratio, or tangent ratio, and seeing that how you set up the ratio and whether you use sine, cosine, or tangent depends upon what leg measurements and what hypotenuse measurements you're given in the problem.